So we could say it's going to be in this range, you know, kind of a.
I think that's something that the department does engage in. Historically, they've done that on a biannual basis. They've provided those estimates publicly. They departed from that tradition this year. You know, I think if they aren't able to provide those, we could do our best to come up with something for you, but we don't have access to the sort of data that they have access to, so it would be perhaps not as accurate as if they were to provide it to you.
It seems to me that now that we have the realignment, you know, with, we're dealing with a population that's less volatile, that we might be able to be better at projecting the population because we're not dealing with short-termers. And it's, that seems to me that makes it easier, maybe a little bit less complicated, but I don't know. I mean,
we'd have to ask the department.
Ask the department what they feel about that, if there's a way we can get a population range.
Sorry, probably I should.
Let him finish this question.
And then I had another question. Madam Chair, I would like to have the summary of the, I've been interested in the contracted beds both in and out of the state. I would like to have a summary of the number of beds and population per contracted facility in and out of the state, so I can see what kind of design capacity and the full population, and how many Californians, I guess you might put it that way, are in those facilities. Are there other people in the facilities? Then the per inmate cost per unit, per facility, and the contract amount and the name of the location of the contractor in and out of the state, and what level of security are the various people that we send to those states, or out-of-state or in-state facilities that are contracted. What's the level of security for those folks? And I asked already for the department to produce a population trend broken down by security levels. And I've requested that information. I think this also affects the population trends, the security level, as well as the total numbers. So I would like to see that. I think we obviously want to look at, you know, reducing our contracted beds, you know, at some point.
Absolutely.
But we need more information to make an intelligent decision. And I appreciate the LAO report. That's very good. Those are the kind of information I would like to see. I want to know if that can be done, these requests I've made. We'd like to see that as soon as possible, so we don't get into the budget season and not have the information. I need to make an intelligent decision on whether or not I want to approve the budget. If I can't make an intelligent decision, I just simply don't make a decision. So that's sort of my attitude about it.
And I would point out that is a no vote, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, that's the way I work it. That's the way I do it.
Perhaps we can address whether we can get
Thank you very much.
these particular details, all of which I think would be very helpful to the committee and the legislature. And let me just say, this is part of probably the crux of the conversation we need to have. Many members of the legislature are quite concerned about why the population goes down and the budget goes up, and really believe that given the other unmet needs in the state, there has to be a way to work with that. And let me just say that as part of the blueprint that was adopted in 2012, the department and the administration said that they would end all out-of-state contracts by this year, 2015-16. And that we would save, therefore, which is one of the reasons the committee voted for the blueprint, we would save about $318 million annually. And, you know, I would just point out, about $300 million is 20,000 childcare slots in a system that's been cut to the bone. So the money makes a real difference, and we have to, if we're responsible people, look at that. So I think that Senator Bell's questions are very appropriate. Can you provide us that information?
So Wayne Babby, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I think a lot of this is a process. I think in the May revise process, you'll see our revised spring projections, and it'll address a lot of that. Part of the problem with the 5-year projections, and our secretary did commit to include those in the next round, is that I would caution you that we have more data on Prop 47 as well as the 3 judge policy changes, but at the same time, we still have a limited amount of data that we use to do those projections. The first 2 years, we have a lot of confidence in. It's when you get past those 2 years. And after we get more data, you know, those will get better. And I do have to mention too, just pride in my team, if nothing else, even with Prop 47 and some of the things that happen, our projections that were included in the governor's budget are still among the best in the country, even given all that. So I would like to put that plug in. They're still pretty darn good, so.
I don't think I'm criticizing your projections. I think I need the information to make a decision. I mean, I'm not.
So I think, and I'll defer to my colleague at
If I could
Department
just
of.
ask Senator Bell, have you made that request to the department in writing? Could you share it with the committee staff too? Okay, I think that's the key thing.
That would be helpful to see.
And then we can, yeah.
It would be helpful to see.
Okay, because I do also think that the LAO has hit on something very important in terms of the buffer beds, right? And also, there was a commitment in all this to close the state prison at Norco. So the question here is, if we're going to keep contract beds, can we close Norco? Population's going down. It's going to cost millions and millions of dollars to make it habitable. Can we bring people back from out of state and save money? What is that mix in the population that is going to finally show, number one, show the courts that we can stabilize our population at a rate that is constitutional, and also so that we can begin to get those savings. So there's going to be some mix here, and obviously we'll hold all this open till the May revise, and we'll hope to get some good numbers there, and the answers to Senator Bell's questions would really be, I think, very much appreciated by the committee. So should we move at this point to the, oh, okay, excuse me.
Sorry. Laura Magnani with the American Friends Service Committee and also Californians United for a Responsible Budget on this particular item. We really appreciate the recommendations of the LAO, and we concur with them that deepening our involvement in the contract beds is a serious mistake at this point, and that the numbers are coming down and we keep increasing the capacity. So we would really like to see the capacity shrinking, not expanding, and especially not in the direction of contract beds. One of the things about contracts, and I think this is why we haven't been able to bring people home from out of state, is that they're contracts. So you're committed to a certain demographic, you're committed to feeding those contracts. And that's why it's really scary for us to deepen our commitment to the contracts. The other thing I want to say is that what we're really hoping for, and I know the legislature's got an eye on this, is sustainable, durable solutions in order to comply with the court decision, not just playing the numbers game. And that's going to take sentencing reform, and it's going to take a real commitment to community programs as alternatives that are more effective. I know there's several things going through the legislature already that will get us in the direction of some of those sustainable and durable solutions, and I congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Joyce Hayhoe from the Receiver's Office. Just wanted to let you know that with regard to the CRC facility, if CRC would need to stay open, we would need to have a healthcare improvement project there at CRC. We have healthcare improvement projects right now underway at all of our prisons except CRC. The reason why we didn't have one was because it was slated for closure. So I just wanted the committee to be aware that that will be necessary should CRC anybody decide to keep CRC open, and that, would cost several $1 million. Thank you.
Craig Brown for the California Correctional Peace Officers Association. Again, we just want to we agree with you, the chair's comments about saving a lot of money by bringing people back from out of state. It's not good for the inmates. It's terrible for the California taxpayers. We're taking California tax dollars and creating good middle-class jobs in other states. Why don't we do it in California? Thank you.
Right, thank you. And I think we're also looking at the question of what is an appropriate buffer. Do we really need that many thousands of beds? And if we brought people back, we would save money. And yeah, did you want to say something, Department of Finance?
Sure, I'd like to make a couple comments. On the note about the blueprint, part of the major reason we're not achieving some of the savings identified in the blueprint is that the blueprint included a strategy to overcrowd institutions to 145%, and that was part of how we were able to project the decrease of use of contract beds. Subsequent to the blueprint, the final ruling came in saying 137.5, and the state agreed to no longer appeal that decision. So in order to get to 137.5, the use of contract beds that were not planned for in the blueprint, it was part of that plan. Also just wanted to mention that at the time of the governor's budget, we felt like it was premature to start the discussion about bringing down contract beds. Like the LAO mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty at the time of the governor's budget. You had Prop 47, which had just been implemented, took a conservative approach on the projections of that implementation based on historical trends from Prop 36. So like it was mentioned, Prop 47 was projected at the time of the governor's budget to have an impact of 1,900. Also at the time of the governor's budget, there's still significant uncertainty on the counting of infill and the timing of infill, like the LAO mentioned. So if infill was behind schedule, that's approximately another 2,300 to 3,200 beds that are kind of in flux in this unique year of 15-16. On top of that, you had the Office of Research at CDCR, which I would agree is doing a great job on some of these projections at a very difficult time. You have the budget built on a projection of a brand new parole process for nonviolent, non-sex registrant second strikers that have served 50% of their sentence. That was projected to have an increase, or a ADP, average daily population reduction, of over 1,500 inmates in 2015-16. So when you couple all of this uncertainty together in building the 15-16 budget, especially based on what we knew at the time of building the governor's budget, that's where you get to that buffer that was built in of 4,400 inmates. So we've committed in various hearings, we know more information than we did at the time of the governor's budget, and we intend to go back and look at what an appropriate number of contract beds would be going forward. But I also did want to quickly touch on the post-realignment stability in the projections, is maybe how it was worded, but post-realignment, I think the Office of Research would agree there's actually a lot of uncertainty in how to do those projections because you have very limited trend data post-realignment to go off of when you're making those out-year projections. The POP projections from the fall that were released did include a by-level projection into the out-year, which does include certain inmates. However, the Office of Research, I believe, did their best to project by housing unit out 5 years. So that is out there with the governor's budget. However, like the department mentioned, we have committed to providing the entire gamut of 5-year projections with the caveat that there is a lot of uncertainty projecting that far out with the for I don't believe it's done that way. I'd have to defer to the department on how exactly the out-year projection is done. But one last point I wanted to make is before implementing a lot of these population reduction measures like Prop 47, the 50% parole process, the other 3-judge panel measures, population was increasing, which is an added uncertainty if you don't know the ultimate impact of some of these, and the underlying data was suggesting that population was increasing over the years. That also adds to the complication and the discussion about what's the appropriate amount of contract beds in this year of uncertainty. But like has been mentioned, we're committed to providing further information in the May revision and have been working hard to look at what's appropriate.
Right, thank you very much, and I think we appreciate that. Just in terms of moving forward, I wonder if the administration, as you look ahead, are thinking about asking that the legislature codify any of the court rulings as an indication that we are going to have a stable system going forward that could bring the prison population down.
I think we're still looking into what is the appropriate long-term approach. As far as the May revision, I think we're looking at, based on what is in place right now, how do we think we can proceed? However, the department and the administration does need to sit down and take a more long-term look at what durable solutions need to be put in place in order to stay below this 137.5 going forward.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm also interested if there's any data that we have about why the prison population is increasing and in what categories. The word on the street is you've got more DAs upcharging and trying to make things strikes so people will go to prison. I have no way of evaluating that. Who would? Would DOJ be responsible for that? Can
So
CDC?
Wayne Babby
help
again.
us?
What's interesting is we saw that before Prop 47, and after Prop 47, we're seeing something a little bit different. So I'd really, I think the best thing to do, wait until the May revise and wait till our new projections come
Okay,
out.
this is gonna
It
be-
changed again, so it's a little bit interesting, and you know, it's a very fluid situation.
Okay, we'll wait till the May revise, but you know we'll be waiting with bated breath, right, for the May revise. Thank you for yeah, and thank you very much, because it is helpful to us. So this is really the same topic, but let's move to the infill beds then, which actually are going to get back to, I think, the core question, which is, why are we growing the buffer beds by so much, and don't we have to, and what are the implications were we to not do that? Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
so with the infill activations at Mule Creek and at RJD, the department is requesting 252.3 positions and 35.6 million in 15-16, and that's growing to 518.2 positions and $67.8 million in budget year +1 and ongoing. These funds are to activate the level 2 dorm facilities at, as I mentioned, Mule Creek State Prison and RJD State Prison. The request includes 146 positions and nearly 21 million in budget year, growing to 327 positions and 43 million in 16-17 for Mule Creek specifically. And then 106 positions and $14.7 million in budget year, growing to 191 positions and $24.7 million in 16-17 and ongoing at RJD specifically. These numbers do exclude ratio-driven positions and inmate-driven OE&E, which are going to be just redirected within our existing resources.
What's EOE?
Sorry, operating expense and equipment. So the other than personnel is kind of how you can think about it. We do have the population at this time, so those funds will shift with the population. This is obviously one of our answers to the 3JP population reduction order that we have coming up for February. The activation for both facilities, as was mentioned, is scheduled for February of 2016.
Okay. LAO, do you have additional comments? Department of Finance? Okay, well, I do have some questions. We're looking at an institutional buffer now of 4,000 beds. right? And the reason is, and the question before this committee has got to be, do we need that? Or can we use this money to do what we said we were going to do, which was close CRC, close that prison? What is the administration's current plan on that?
So as Mr. Gauger mentioned, we're currently working with finance on what that plan should look like, and it'll be released in the May revision.
So May revised.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, I would just note that even the standardized staffing plan has a capacity for 123,000 inmates, which is about 11,000 inmates more than we've got now. So why we actually need 252 more positions isn't clear. Wait till the May revise?
Well, do you want to address the staffing at the infill facilities?
Certainly. Staffing at the infill facility will mirror our staffing at similar facilities. At the substance abuse treatment facility and state prison at Corcoran, they have similar type design housing. So you have to have correctional officers in the housing units on all 3 watches. And so the staffing augmentation is part of our standardized staffing, that when you have additional buildings, we have generally a minimum of 2 correctional officers in that building to facilitate the day-to-day programming and supervision within those housing units. Yes, sir. Level 2, correct.
Okay. And why do we need the new beds?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Why do we need the new beds?
Why do we need the new beds? So ultimately, this is in support of the department's commitment that the secretary made during previous hearings, where it is our intent, consistent with a lot of what's been said over the last 30 minutes, to obviously, first of all, comply with the 137.5% that's been handed down by the 3-judge courts, but also in so doing to try and reduce our footprint out of state and in-state in contract facilities. So I think it's the department's intent to look at ways to house as many inmates as possible within our 34 and a half.
So the department's intent would be to activate these infill beds and bring people back from out of state?
Well, I don't want to tie those two directly, but they're absolutely
not.
part of the
Then
plan.
what are we doing but adding beds?
It is absolutely the department's intent to reduce our contract beds, and this is one of the ways we hope to do that, yes.
Okay. Well, okay, I think what I'm hearing is we should hold this all open until the May revise. Oh, Senator Bell.
Well, the master plan for the whole system in terms of physical facilities, you have a master plan, correct? Okay, does it call for more beds in the overall, or is it, what does that master plan call for? The physical facilities.
We're actually, based on the latest information that we have, that's the plan that we're actually working with finance on that will be part of that May revision.
Okay,
is where we think.
So I like the concept, I'll just say this, I like the concept of if we have an ability to, how would you say it, upgrade some of our prisons over 5 years, because, I visited quite a few of them, and I'll tell you this, folks. Some of those facilities need a little bit of tender loving care. And we have to start doing some tender loving care on those facilities to make them in good shape. And I like the idea of reducing the contract beds and having our facilities be, in better shape. I'm not, I sort of like that, but I think we have to do it in the right way from a fiscal standpoint. So I just generally like that approach, okay? I want to have a nice nice, some of the facilities are pretty worn down. I don't want some judge coming in and telling me I have to do something, the next round of court orders, because the facilities are falling apart or whatever. So I think it's very important that we look at, things like these new dormitory ideas, using our existing facilities in that way. So I just want to say that, I think. But at the same time, we can lower the population in the contract bed, so we can kind of shift people.
I agree. It's all a matter of trade-offs.
Yeah, it's a trade-off, yeah.
I can say
And it
with,
shouldn't be just always incrementally up. And it really shouldn't be that it has to be a court or a citizen initiative that
Yeah.
helps us lower the population. I mean, we really need to work together, I think, as a legislature and administration. And I know the governor's talked about some of the sentencing changes, and some of them have been suggested by the court. That's why I'm interested in whether.
Mill Creek is,
Yeah. Okay, so, Senator Anderson, any questions? No. Any comments from the public? Okay, we're holding this item open, and we're moving on to number 9, the Walker Yard activation. I don't know if Walker is the name after a person, or if, I thought it was a sensitive needs yard for the women's prison for certain people.
so the person who just sat down to my
Yeah.
right can probably answer the Walker question, but we'll see in just a second. Let me pave the way for him first. So the CIW Walker Unit activation request involves approximately $1.1 million in 9.1 positions in budget year, growing to approximately $1.6 million in 13.6 positions in 2016-17 to activate a closed 20-bed unit at our California Institution for Women for hard-to-place inmates. The requested staffing levels are consistent with those established in the standardized staffing model. The construction is underway and is scheduled to be completed around the end of the calendar year, with activation scheduled to occur about 30 to 60 days after that. And I am joined by Mr. Jay Verbal from the Division of Adult Institutions to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I think one of them is 20 beds enough to answer the concerns of the OIG?
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. I would like to start with a small overview and answer your question that way if I could. We currently have an ARGP program, as Mr. Barton had spoke of earlier today, and that was like what the Walker Unit's going to be. It has hard-to-place female offenders who get to go in there and have an opportunity to program. Currently, it has 13 today out of the 16 beds, and actually has worked so well that we have no waiting list for that right now, and have been able to use or utilize those programs and those beds as a deterrent to go into a administrative housing opportunity. We can say at this point, if you choose to go to the A-Yard program for some sort of special housing needs, would you like to do that and stay out of going into an administrative segregation on a separate type of housing? Just met with them a couple of weeks ago down there, and we have 2 women at that time who had found that to be successful for their programming needs. So that was working. Number 2 is 20 beds at this time should sufficiently address what the needs are for hard to place. That will be an individual housing unit just for hard to place and not inside a already structured housing unit, because it is the addition of a closed wing in remodel right now. So it will have its own small yard and its own small facility programming opportunities. With that being said, and I'll address Miller Unit, most of the housing units down there were named after, or Walker Unit, excuse me, were named after community leadership at the time when the institution was built. And so each one has a different housing name. With that being said, though, the program is being successful. Today we have about 41 women currently programming in the SHU at CIW, which is significantly lower than it has been in past years. I believe there's 33 women in administrative segregation at that same institution, so a very small number compared to what used to be utilized there. And the population today at CIW is just in the 1,500 range. And so with that being said, population is down to about in the 120% range there at this time. Yes, ma'am. And we're happy to report that. Same way the trending's going down at CCWF also for the decrease in population, and the administrative segregation housing there is just right around 100 right now for that population and as they move through. But there are no women at this time that are in the SHU that have not been afforded the opportunity if they would like to go into the A-yard programming for hard to place for enemy concerns or other concerns that may have arose.
Okay, so is it people who are hard to place because they might have enemy concerns and mental health patients?
So,
Or you can go to SHU, but are the new units going to be a mix of hard to place and mentally ill?
So the unit that's set up for the CCWF A-yard is in a unit that has several different dorm-style housings in there, and they share a shared dorm or housing environment area for TV room, laundry, and other facilities. They have full use of that, but it also has on that unit, has some of the women who have an EOP designation, so an enhanced outpatient program, and they don't share the same dorms, but they do share facility areas. The facility that will be opened at CIW will also not exclude someone because of a mental health need, because we do try and program folks together, but they would have a separate sleeping area if that were to be the need.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Does the LAO have any comments? Finance, any comments? Are there any questions from members of the committee or comments from the public?
I just had a comment. I generally like the idea of upgrading facilities on our sites. I think that's, again, that's, fixing up our existing facilities, making them useful. I think that's a good thing. I had a question though. Of the contracted beds that we have in California, how much of those contracted beds are for the female inmates in our state?
I can answer that. So we have different types of contracted beds, and so I don't know if we're talking primarily like an in-custody bed, but if it was an in-custody bed, we have McFarland, who is contracted for up to 300 beds. The women live there up to 3 years, and that is a reentry style facility. So in other words, it offers a lot of cognitive programming, therapeutic program, and reentry style to get you prepared for when you're released to your community. But they are there for their full 3 years. So that is the only one that we have, both in-state or out-of-state, that would have females that are
Where's
in.
that? Where's that
That's in
located?
McFarland, California.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that
That's the
either.
one the movie is about, right?
Close to the one in the movie's at. It was a new facility that has that was built. It has it has dental on board. It has a lot of programming space and opportunities there. And so, welcome to tour you sometime.
Yeah.
Does CDCR run that, or is it a contract?
That is a contracted
Is it
facility.
contracted with?
That one has been contracted through the Geo Corporation at that time for that one.
So that's the only woman's contract, right?
That is the only women's
So we have,
contracted.
like,
But it's different than the men's contracted facility. That one, for that contract, we had brought in our gender responsive level of programming that's there. So taking consideration that when that one was built to accommodate the women programming, it also has the upgrades to it, such as the washers and dryers. It has the family reunification spaces. It has 10, I think they're called triple wide modulars that were put in to do computer programming, to do life skills, life scripting. We've also brought in Dr. Owens, and we have Dr. Covington that come in and offer the Beyond Violence. And so we
When did
really,
that start? When did that contract start?
that contract, that one has been open, and forgive me now because I have a lot of different numbers in my head, but that one I believe has been open for almost a year at this time.
Okay. Well, okay. This particular item 9,
You want
move
to
that.
approve as budgeted?
yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Good.
Thank you.
Read the roll, please.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
Senator Anderson. Senator Bell.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll now moving to item number 10, which is the enhanced outpatient program at CCWF.
Okay, for this request, it involves 2.5 correctional officers and $300,000 ongoing to support the activation and operation of the Mental Health Services Delivery System Enhanced Outpatient Program Treatment and Office Space Project at the Central California Women's Facility. commonly referred to as CCWF. The building is scheduled to be completed around the end of May of this year. CDCR's mental health services delivery system provides clinical services and therapeutic programs to seriously mentally disordered inmates through both inpatient and outpatient services. The EOP model allows inmate patients with mental health conditions to function in the least restrictive clinical and custodial environment possible. The EOP facility will provide group counseling space, recreational therapy space, individual counseling space, academic education space, and space to conduct interdisciplinary treatment team reviews. And again, I'm joined by Mr. Verbal and Ms. Allison from the Division of Adult Institutions to answer any questions the committee might have.
Okay. LAO, Finance, questions or comments
I do,
from the
Madam Chair.
committee?
I just want to express a very basic concern about the overcrowding and the ability of the mental health system to provide adequate care for people at this facility. And I support this measure, but I would like to see a specific approach to how do we approach the overcrowding of the facility. It's the most overcrowded facility in our state. And, you know, we need to take some immediate action to reduce the overcrowding. I visited, you know, we went out and visited Senator Lou. We visited last year, right? And with Senator Lou. And I think they said they were going to deal with the overcrowding, and it's still the same, about the same. So what can we do to reduce the overcrowding? Are we going to have a proposal to deal with that? That's, to me, it's something we have to deal with. We want to see some options so we could deal with that. And I want to approve this. I think this is a good idea to have enhanced mental health service. I saw the need when I went there for that. I agree that we need to do this. However, it's kind of hard to have a good program of service when when the facility is so overcrowded, and actually the overcrowding causes a lot of the mental health problems in those facilities because you're just trying to cram too many people in there. So anyway,
Mr. Verbal, what's your response?
Thank you. We share your concern. So first off, without that going unnoted, we understand the concern that's raised. We have been working diligently to reduce the population, as the Secretary had come across recently and made the commitment that we'd work towards the 137% for our female population. With that being said, we're well on our way. The population today for the CCWF has been reduced down to the 3228. So that's almost 700 women who have been reduced from that population, which is notable. With that being said, we have different avenues for the women population, and they have been going also out into our reentry facilities, where they're going out and they're finding successful jobs, and they're finding family reunification along with trauma-informed programs that help them in their recidivism and really restart the life that they deserve and need coming out of these prison environments. So with that being said, we are cognizant, we understand that it's there, we understand the concern, and we're working very hard to eliminate that.
Part of that, the compassionate release activities at this facility, you have eligible inmates for that?
So on compassionate release, they're referred over with the Board of Parole Hearings and with the Receiver's Office to review each and every one of those cases when they come. And so they do work, all three of those, and including ourselves, work hand in hand to ensure that those cases that meet those criteria are worked up and put into. I'd like to see a
report on that, and how we are doing on compassionate release.
I can request that.
It seems like that's obvious. When I observed the facility, I thought that was an obvious thing.
Oh, there is data on it, and there is concern, I think, as you know, Mr. Verbal, that many people have been turned down, and we've seen that data somewhere. So if you could get it together, that might be an ongoing conversation.
We can have that forwarded to you, yes, ma'am.
And then we had a program that Senator Lou championed with her SB 1266.
Mothers with children.
And I want to know what the status of getting people referred to that
So
program are.
that's
Is
a
that-
wonderful program that we have down in Pomona, California. Actually, we do quite well there. Today, there's 19 women who are there in the program. 3 recent babies were just brought in with their mothers over the last month. I did visit that program last month and walked and talked, but that program does quite well. We start out early to make sure that we're reaching the women who can reach that population. They are either come from the CCWF or the CIW. And if eligible, they live out with their children there up to the age of 6 years. And so Head Start's also on that program and foster a good relationship and really make sure that we have the bonding program going forward. And so that's a great program.
Is the good time credits issue being exhausted in terms of the capability of reducing the population at the facility?
So we are offering all milestone credits and any other good time credits that are there that are afforded, and they're afforded all the way up and through the time of their release.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve as budgeted? Thank you. Please keep it roll.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
Senator Anderson. Senator Bell.
Aye.
Okay, the last item on our budget, and then we will go back and see if Senator Bell wants to vote on item number 4, because he missed that vote. But number 11 is registered nursing coverage for contract facilities.
Okay, thank you. This proposal involves the department requesting $2.71 million in current year and $3.25 million ongoing beginning in budget year in order to contract for 24-hour, 7-day-a-week registered nurse coverage at our in-state contract facilities. This does include, as was mentioned earlier, 1 female community reentry facility. The need is related to a mandate passed down by the receiver's office that the department's contracted facilities provide this 24/7 coverage. Prior to this mandate, RN coverage at these facilities was offered for just 1 shift a day, 8 hours a day. I am joined again by Mr. Verbal, but also by Ms. Hayhoe to answer any questions you might have about this proposal.
Thank you. The women's reentry facility is the one in San Diego? Which one is it?
So McFarland is considered
Oh, it's
a reentry
McFarland.
facility. The San Diego and the newly opened, on which I didn't get a kind of brag on, we did get the LA Center opened, and we have almost 20 women living there now. But that would be the one that's in McFarland, California.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions
I had
from
just-
members of the committee? Or
Just what is the tenure of the contract? Is it 1 year?
So contracts can be terminated without cause, and so the department
anytime
generally
we
has,
want
so anytime, and we do not have a minimum bed that we pay for with contracts, and so there is no guarantee of fund.
Okay, that's something to look at.
Yeah, now that is for the in-state beds, right? Do we have a contract that is a set period of time with the out-of-state facilities?
So we do, those contracts expire, I believe, at the end of 16, or in 16.
So we could really do some good population planning here. Okay.
You want a motion?
Is there any comments from the public? Any comments from LAO or finance? Okay, seeing and hearing none, a motion to approve is budgeted?
So moved.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
Senator Anderson. Senator Bell.
Aye.
Okay, Senator Bell, we did hold the roll open
I vote
on,
aye.
it's an aye vote. Okay. We have completed our business. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.